Hey everybody, welcome back to Wing Wednesdays with MACkiteboarding.com. I'm Tucker, and today we're going to talk to you about the new Ozone Wasp V2. All right. Going down here, I guess we'll talk about the inflation real quick. I guess it's not necessarily the next thing in line here, but we've got two Boston style valves. Takes just a pressure fit into there, the big fat tip into there, so it blows a lot of volume into there fast. Does not have a one pump system. This is a 2-point inflation. Your boom and your leading edge inflate independently, and I'm a big fan of that. Just completely isolate each bladder. That's good for safety in case one fails. It's also good for changing your PSI. You know, you might want to change your leading edge or your boom PSI depending on what the wind is doing, or just to have a stiffer boom or a little bit more flex in the leading edge. They're recommending, 7 PSI on both, so, really it's about the same, but what that does is simplifies, the bladder system. You don't need to pinch off a strut to isolate the bladders. So you're always 2 isolated bladders, which means in a bad situation, you get a cut in your leading edge, you get a cut in your boom. It doesn't dump all the pressure out of the boom or the leading edge. You always have one inflated item that you can rely on, which safety is great. It's also really quick to pack it down. When you have 2 huge ports that you can just dump out, the air just escapes super fast. By the time you fold it up, all the air is evacuated. You don't need to try to section it off and push the air out and push it all through the strut tube. The Wasp last year, I would say that was, my biggest gripe with it was the small single strut tube. It just took a long time to evacuate the strut air. This one dumps super fast and really makes that simple. The last reason you want dual zone inflation rather than a single point inflation is there's always going to be a strut tube. Now you're always reaching around, grabbing at handles and things on a wing. If you accidentally grab that strut tube and yank it off of the seat, yank it off of the elbow, or tear it, that's going to deflate at least one of your leading edge of your bladder. A lot of people aren't clamping that strut tube off, so in that case it would dump both your leading edge and your bladder. That's not a good situation. You don't want to be swimming in a big wet blanket with no inflation, especially if something happens in the worst case scenario and your board leash breaks or becomes detached from you somehow. We like duplicity in safety systems, so always play to the safest common denominator, and that's what we're doing with this dual zone inflation. No strut tube to accidentally grab. Always separate no matter what. Even if you forget to clamp it, it's always separate. It doesn't matter. So I think that's a great thing. Good job, Ozone, for thinking of that and putting it into practice. And in a lot of wings this year actually are going down that road. So I think that will be the standard here in the near future. Really doesn't take much extra time to plug in your hose to another attachment point, and there are a lot of benefits. So yeah, we got the inflation valves. We'll talk about handles. Just like last year, we have Y-strap handles. This year they're larger, more useful. They're also thicker. You've got nice, thick, padded handles here. They're very ergonomic. Just fits in your hand really nicely. It's big enough. There's a lot of cushion there, but it's not so big that you got a death grip of the thing. You can fingertip it, but there's enough there where it's real easy to hold on to. If you want to hold it in real hard in one particular place, your hand's not sliding around or doing any of that. This front handle, this one is the one I use most often for my front hand. You can fly off the Y handle as well, but I'm kind of just used to using the sender line type handles now because so many wings don't have the Y handles. I do use the Y handles a lot for jibes and tacking. Anytime you're moving your hands blindly and you just want to grab at something, if you miss this, you can grab that, you can grab that. It's real easy to find these, almost impossible to not find them. It makes it really easy. Going to these back handles, I find I'm using mostly this back one. Sometimes this one in a powered situation, or if I'm downwinding a bit and I just don't need a lot of power in the sail. This middle one, I really don't use it a lot except for flying one-handed. Grabbing it like this, the handle is stiff enough and rigid enough you can kind of articulate the wing with one hand, especially heading kind of, you know, cross downwind with just enough power, you know, to keep you moving, you know, connecting a wave or something, or if you're just screwing around, throwing the wing in circles and stuff. This is a really nice, well-balanced center handle. It took me a little bit to figure that out, you know, almost just looks like one of your back handles, but this one is placed well for one-handed flying, so that's really fun. Next, since we're talking about handles, we'll talk about harness line. You've got attachment points here, here, and here. I find this one and this one works best for me. That gives me a little bit of ability to slide back and forth and adjust the power of the wing with my hook. This one here is going to work real well for a shorter type of loop. You know, when you're really just wanting a backhand impulse, you know, you can almost completely drop your front hand because this one is really taking all the load. You can still ride backhand only with this one like this, the way it is, and you just adjust your hook in an appropriate way. But the front hand is going to be, or your backhand is going to be a little bit more adjusting the height of the wing and where you want it flying, whereas if you have it in the shorter position here with a real short loop, you know, that's going to almost act like a front hand for you, where that backhand is just going to be kind of pulling in and holding it. And as long as you have it pointed in the proper direction, it should work rather well. So that's our handles. On the structure of the wing here, you'll notice, like last year, it's got a real large leading edge, at least right up here in the front section where a lot of that structure needs to be for rigidity. The boom is massive, you know, through here, really holds a lot of rigidity, but then it tapers as it hits the end just for a more aerodynamic flying, and it does really well. The boom, the leading edge, excuse me, tapers as you go down and really tapers at the tip again just to reduce that drag coming off that back end of the wing. And look at our luff, or our strut panel here, kind of this in here. It's not super deep here, but the shape of it is just really good. And I would say that's, you know, probably the number one improvement is just the shape this way this year, and then the shape of the foil section here. I'm not sure, you know, exactly what magic they worked on it, but this year it's a lot faster. It builds a lot more apparent wind, has more lift when you're powered, when you're trying to get up or doing a jump. So it's all positive things. You know, if you love the V1, you're gonna love the V2 even more. You know, it's a lot of the same kind of feel and an intuitive hand placement and all of that, and it's still a very compact wing, easy to handle. The 5, you know, almost feels like a 4 because of the wingspan and the way, you know, the strut and the trailing edge line up, and it's got a bit of dihedral, so it's a really easy to handle wing. Anybody with, you know, a shorter stature, you know, definitely take a look at this one, and anyone that's just having struggles, you know, with the wingtip dragging or the, you know, cumbersome nature of wider wingspan wings, definitely should be looking at the V2. Yeah, so it's really, really fun. And yeah, to my review, you know, honestly, I think the V2 out of wings I've tested recently has been the biggest surprise to me. I was a huge fan of the V1, and I'm like, looking at it on paper, it looks like they changed some materials, they changed some little things, added windows. But I'm thinking, you know, it doesn't look like a complete redesign of the whole wing shape and, you know, the meat and potatoes of the wing. But I can tell you they've definitely worked a lot on those things. It's just not apparent on paper. This wing is a lot faster than years previous. You know, the V1 is a very easy to ride wing, excellent for new riders, but as progression in wing foiling is happening, you know, there's new demands for more apparent wind, more lift, more speed, less drag in the wing. And really the V2 steps up to the plate and meets those challenges with ease. I immediately noticed the difference on the water. Riding it back to back with some other really nice wings for 2021, the V2 really stood out in a lot of ways. And you know, I'd say the #1 way it stood out is it's just very intuitive, easy performance. You can hang right onto this wing. It feels like you've been riding it for years, and the performance it puts into your hands is just really easy to achieve. It's like, bam, instantly you're riding faster. You can ride a smaller wing for the same kind of conditions if you know what you're doing, pumping it up, because once you get moving, it builds apparent wind, it builds power so quickly and easily that it's just a ton of fun, just very easy to ride. In terms of surf performance, I've ridden it in some decent waves, downwind waves. It handles really well. It's a rather light wing, so it floats really well. The position of the handle, the shape of the canopy and everything, you know, it wants to hover lightly in your hand. It does have pretty good stability. I wouldn't say it's the most stable surfing wing on the planet, but what you get in power and lift, I would say, you know, the surf performance is greater than average for wings, and certainly plenty acceptable for me. I'll take this out any day of the week and really not be upset about it. In fact, it's better than most of the wings out there. So in that regard, it's really good. There's just always room for improvement in that regard. So, you know, the more stability, the better when you're luffing the sail. And in terms of straight downwind performance on the wave, occasionally the wing will fall in front of you, but really that's to be expected with most wings. You know, you reach downwind speed of the wind fairly quickly when you're on a decent wave with a fast foil. So in that regard, again, I would say better than average, probably not the best I've ever had, but really good. It's going to be more than acceptable for 99% of people out there. But if all you care about is stability and downwind performance on the wave, I would say there's one, maybe two other options out there that might be just a little bit better. So that is kind of the basics of it. If there's anything I don't like about this wing, you know, there's really not a lot to say about it. It comes with that waist leash. I personally would have liked to see a wrist leash. That's just kind of standard in the industry right now. The waist leash is a really nice touch, especially for new riders, people riding in lighter winds, you know, that aren't going to be putting a lot of stress on that leash. But the plastic buckle for me is just something I wouldn't trust in critical surfing conditions, in really high wind conditions where there's a lot of stress yanking on that leash, whether you're going through a wave with the wing or the wing is getting yanked out of your arms at high speeds because of high winds. As I said before, the wrist cuff is just a more secure connection, I feel, and trusting just that plastic buckle to hold all that load, I think, is a bit too much to really trust into that. But I love that they have the option to swap out either the leash line for the waist leash, or you can take the same leash line and use it on a wrist cuff or on a harness if you're using a harness line. And really for me, there hasn't been any kind of a holdback on that, because I haven't even ridden the waist belt they've given me. I just always hook the rope straight to my harness line. In terms of their leash line, this is one of the most robust I've seen. It's super strong, nice and thick, easy to hold on to. It's not coiled where it's going to get knotted up or hung up on something. And it's got a nice swivel on it so it doesn't get all coiled up if you're constantly looping under the wing. So I've been a huge fan of this wing, as I said. The backpack that's included, if anybody cares about it, comes in this real cool drab green. It is a single backpack loop, so you're not getting two straps. So you throw it over your head and kind of do it angular. It does have a pump attachment, although it works best for short pumps, not tall pumps. But yeah, real lightweight bag, really nice vent on the bottom here to help you get rid of the sand and moisture. So it's lightweight, it does the trick. They probably didn't charge you an extra $50 in the price of your wing because of the bag. So I give it a big thumbs up. It's light enough to travel with without having to really worry about the extra weight. So Good stuff. As with all of our videos, go ahead and give your comments in the comments section below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you've ridden the V1, what you thought of that. If you've ridden the V2, what you thought of that. If you have any questions for us or comments, please put those down there. We'll get a little discussion started. And yeah, we can all learn from one another with this thing. So I apologize if I missed any anything you guys want to know about, but hopefully we can hit it after the fact and get you that information. As always, feel free to call us at the shop. Pick up our live chat on our website. You can send us an email and we'll be happy to respond to you. Once again, this has been Tucker with MACkiteboarding.com, and we'll see you next time on Wing Wednesdays.